Welcome to City on a Hill Kids Church Online.
I'm Moa.
And I'm Jamie.
Today we're going to be talking about Paul the Apostle.
But that'll be after a time of worship.
This song is Romans 8:28. Let's get bouncing together. This song is about how God works everything out for our good. So you guys, we're going to start by singing, and we know, and we know. Can you guys sing it out? Here we go.
And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God, and are called according to His purpose for them.
Sing Romans 8:28.
Romans 8:28.
All right, you guys, let's dance together. Can you guys spin around like this? Good job. And the other way. All right, let's sing. And we know.
And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God, and are called according to His purpose for them.
Sing Romans 8:28.
Romans 8:28.
All right, you guys, let's clap our hands like this. And let's spin. Let's sing, and we know. Here we go.
And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God, and are called according to His purpose for them.
Sing Romans 8:28.
Romans 8:28.
All right, you guys, let's dance together. Let me see you moving. And let's spin. And go the other way.
For we know all things work together for good, for those who love God and are called according to His purpose. That comes from the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. And it is true that everything does work for good. That's everything ends up being okay for those who love God and are doing what God wants them to do. So today we are going to look at Paul. You do remember him, don't you? We've spoken a lot about him in this series. Paul. His name was formerly Saul of Tarsus. He did lots of interesting things to people who were followers of Jesus. But he had a life-changing experience when he was going to a place called Damascus. Do you remember that? If you do remember, that's good. But if you don't, it's an opportunity to go back into the series and see where the story is. I think it was the one about coping with things when things are scary. Better still, you can actually read it for yourself in the book of Acts of the Apostles, chapter 9, verses 10 to 19. After his name was changed to Paul, he went around teaching people about Jesus. Lots of people became Christians because of him. He made 3 missionary journeys. That is, going around to countries in a circuit preaching about Jesus. He faced many dangers, including being beaten, being stoned, being shipwrecked, being bitten by a snake, and many, many, many more. As I said, he spoke to many people about Jesus. Jews and non-Jews alike. Some people didn't bother to listen to what he had to say. They just rejected his message. Then there were others who embraced his message. Paul wrote at least 7 books out of the 27 in the New Testament. Paul coped with many of the things that we've been speaking about. He has coped with new situations, arguing with a friend, being the only Christian in a place. He's coped with being humble and teachable. I'm just now going to tell you of a story about Paul where things didn't really go too well. So the first one I'm going to talk about is when he was going to be tried in court. That means that people have accused him of something or accused you of something, even though in the case of Paul, they were all lies. It was some Jews in Jerusalem who had accused him of some things. And so Paul was supposed to appear in front of the court, but he didn't want to appear in court in Jerusalem because he knew that those who were going to try him would not be fair. So he decided that he wanted to go to Rome to be tried by Caesar himself. And that's exactly what happened. So they set off to Rome and they went by ship. They didn't have aeroplanes in those days, or trains for that matter. So they went by ship. And what happened was that a big storm brewed and the ship was tossed left, right and center and everybody was scared. As a matter of fact, the soldiers who were taking Paul to Rome wanted to make sure that not even one of the prisoners who were also on that ship escaped. And that would have involved them making sure that none of those prisoners were alive anymore. The funny thing is that if they had made sure that those prisoners were not alive, they too would not be alive because, as I said, the storm, oh my goodness, it was a very, very strong storm. So Paul spoke to the soldiers and told them that, look, just make sure everybody stays together because God had sent an angel to him to tell him that everybody was going to live, they should just stay together. And that's what the soldiers did. They paid attention to what Paul had to say. And then the ship became shipwrecked on an island called Malta. So that's one of the challenges that he went through. Now, while he was on the island of Malta, for them to keep warm, the islanders, that's the people from Malta, they gathered sticks and built a fire. And Paul also went to gather sticks too. And when he was putting it over the fire, a viper, a snake, jumped out of the fire and attached itself to his hand. And then the people of the island watched and said, he must have been a very mean man. And they waited for Paul to swell up and not be alive anymore. They waited and waited and waited and waited. They didn't see him swell up, but what they did see was him shake his hand and the viper, the snake, fell off. That's all they saw. So they felt that Paul was a very interesting person. And they wanted to treat him like a god. But he said, no, that they shouldn't do that. But he took that opportunity to speak to them about Jesus. And there was a leader in that place who was very ill. So Paul went to pray for him. And the man got better. And that is how all the people that were ill on that island lined up, went to Paul for Paul to pray for them, and they all got better. Okay, so how many difficult situations have we talked about just now? 2. Now, the third difficult situation I want to talk about is when Paul eventually got to Rome. They all got to Rome. And he was a prisoner. Remember, he was taken to Rome as a prisoner. He was going to be tried in a court. The interesting thing is that instead of Paul being in a prison with chains on his hands, he was allowed to rent his own home. There were prison guards there with him, but people could come and go as they pleased. And that's what happened. And when they came and went, he always spoke to people about Jesus. So he spoke to lots of people about Jesus. I bet you he spoke to the guards too. And also, he wrote quite a number of the books of the Bible right there while he was in prison. So you see, even though he went through all these difficult situations, everything turned out to be good. Remember how we started this series? All things work together for good for those who love God and are called to his purpose. You can read more about this in the book of Acts of the Apostles. And that's the end of the story.
Hello everybody! Sometimes things don't work out as we've planned, do they? Just like for Paul, things weren't going the way he had expected. But the important point is that however bad things get, God can work things out for good. In fact, inside my chain here, I don't know if you can see, I've got written in nice coloured letters, God can work things out for good. So we're going to make these handcuffs and chains, and I know that when you have made these, you're going to want to go around arresting people. And that's okay, because that is going to be quite fun. But promise me that when you do that, you will also remember the point that when things go wrong for somebody, when somebody's plans don't work out the way they meant them to, God can work it out for good. God can work things out for good in your life too. So luckily I can just slip these off. So to make these, you're going to need 2 pieces of A4 paper, and you need to have them the colour that you want. So what I did was I've used a crayon and coloured the whole lot in grey. You might have a black piece of paper that you could use, but it's quite good if it's white on one side, because we're going to be writing inside our links of chain that little message that God can work things out for good. Once you've got your piece coloured in, we need to make a square, as we have done many times before, because the 2 handcuff sections are going to be like those friendship bracelets that we made a few weeks ago. So fold over your corner of your paper and cut it off to make a square. And then, do you remember how we made the friendship bracelets? When we did it last time, because we were having 2 colours, we folded it so that point didn't quite meet. This time it's all one colour. So you can just take your triangle like this, and then working from the bottom, we just fold and flatten, fold and flatten, fold and flatten, fold and flatten. And then the last bit, we're going to have to glue, or else it will all come apart. So we'll just do that. Bit of glue on there. And then you fold that around, and then you'll see that there's the other edge that also needs glued. Good. So here we have the basis for a handcuff, and I've already made the other one. Now, this one I've just glued together so it's easy to slip on and off like the friendship bracelet. But the other thing that you could do, if you would like it to be more fun for playing with, is rather than gluing it, you could just take a paper clip and clip it together. And what that means is that when you put it onto somebody, it will be adjustable, so you can actually make it tighter, so when it's on, it won't come off. So you could do that if you wanted. Good. Once you've got your 2 handcuffs, then we need to make the chain. So left over from the piece of A4 that we cut out, you'll have 2 pieces of paper like that, and we're going to cut each of them into 3 strips. So you should end up with the 2 handcuffs and then 6 strips of chain. And it's on the back of these strips of chain that we're going to write our message. And I've chosen really nice rainbow colours to write my message because the rainbow, do you remember, it was a sign of God's covenant with Noah. It was a sign of his promise that things would work out okay. So in the middle, on the back of each piece of chain, I'm going to write, God can work it out. And then the last one, I'm going to write 2 words, for good. God doesn't cause bad things to happen. God only wants good things for you. But when bad things do happen, because they do happen, he can change it round and cause it to come together for good. So, once you've got your links of chain, what you need to do is start attaching them together. So basically, all you have to do is like making a paper chain. Each one, you're just going to put a bit of glue, then you're going to slot the next one on. So God can. You could use a stapler as well if you prefer, but then you'll end up with it being a bit spiky. So I think glue is quite good for this. God can work it. Oops, nearly there. Out. And then for your last piece of chain, when you slot it on, make sure you remember to slot on your other handcuff as well, or else that one won't be attached. Of course, if you've got it just attached with a paper clip, then you'll be able to take it on and off as well. But if you've got it glued, you need to remember to add that one on before you glue your last link of chain. Good. So here we have it, a pair of handcuffs to remind you sometimes things go wrong. That just happens in life. You need to be ready. Things will sometimes go wrong, not the way you planned. But inside, we've got our secret message. God can work it out for good. And that's what we need to remember. Well, I hope you enjoy making these handcuffs, and I hope you enjoy doing a little bit of a resting around the home. But most of all, I hope you enjoy remembering the fact that even when our plans go wrong, God can turn it to good. Right, I'll see you again soon. Bye!
All things work together for good for those who love the Lord and are called to his purpose. Romans 8:28. We saw it in the story about Paul. He went through many challenges.
That's right. But it all turns out great in the end.
Can you imagine being a prisoner and getting as many visitors as you like?
The story says it all. All things work together for good, for those who love the Lord and are called to his purpose. Romans 8:28.
That's it for this week.
Till next time, bye!